All right, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, call Halal Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, Bashim Rakak Wadash, double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. Salutations to you brothers pushing this word in truth and sincerity. All right, got an article real quick that I'm gonna go into. It's from Zero Hedge. All right, Zero Hedge is a good website. Tyler Durden, he's the author. It's called Forget the Great Wealth Transfer. This is much worse. Okay. And it says authored by Peter Reagan via birchgold.com. Okay. It says what does the early it says what does the average person do when they run out of money before the end of the month? According to Federal Reserve data, nearly half of US households report spending every penny or more than they earn in a typical month, like families juggling credit cards. Governments often rely on borrowing to fill the gap, only on a much larger scale. It says some people unfortunately turn to more desperate means to cover their debt repayments if they can no longer borrow enough money to repeat the cycle. It says why people think that government, which are run by people, act any differently is one of the great mysteries of our time. The key difference is the government can disguise overspending through complex financial mechanisms and jargon, like quantitative easing. That's when the central bank creates dollars to buy government debt with this brand new cash. It's easy to see this expands the money supply, which dilutes the purchasing power of every other dollar in existence. And that's just one piece of jargon. There's a lot more. Fiscal stimulus or yield curve control. The result, however, is the same. The government purchasing power grows as the public purchasing power quietly declines. What governments do when they can't borrow enough money? The cycle usually begins innocently enough. A government is short on tax revenue for something that they want to get done, so they borrow money. Like any good money drunk, this is like any good money drunk, the government doesn't even really repay the debt though. They just try to pay the interest so that they have more money on hand to spend while continuing to borrow more to meet more campaign promises made by politicians. Then, when they can no longer borrow enough money to pay for programs and handouts that they want to fund, they move into debt. Of course, it's never called outright debt. They use terms like quantitative easing, which is just a fancy way of saying that they are printing more money. Of course, that has the effect of making the money in your pocket and in your bank account worth less in real time. Call it quantitative easing, call it inflation, call it what you want. It is theft of your purchasing power that they didn't even tell you about before doing it. How central banks are being used to do it. As the Financial Times recently observed, analysts are increasingly calling this new age of financial dominance in which governments with large debts pressure central banks to keep rates low to lower debt service costs. The thinking behind the low interest rates is that it will encourage borrowing by consumers and businesses to spur spending in the economy, which is how governments tend to think of the economic growth. The problem with this situation is that the pressure to keep interest rates low is due to a perceived soft economy, and this perception makes global investors nervous about financing the debt of governments over those soft economies. Bloomberg has reported that the political volatility in France and Japan is now imposing a political premium on government debt. Investors are demanding higher rates to compensate for governance risk, which is why governments start to debase their currency so that they can continue to service the debt and borrow more. And that's why central banks and major investors like Ray Dalio are both buying gold and other precious metals and also recommending others. Bloomberg calls it the debasement trade. Sell government debt as well as currencies, buy gold, silver. In a nutshell, that's the debasement trade that's become the talk of the town. This is a major reason government debt and currencies are down. And on the other side of the debasement trade, gold prices is up over 50% this year alone. And as of October 17th, silver prices up over 78% year to date. A clear reflection according to any number of analysts of capital fleeing debt-based financial assets in favor of tangible physical precious metals. So you got to watch where money is trending. Or the new trend is putting your fiat into gold and silver, which gold and silver, as you can see, I just read, is up over its previous rates. Right, pretty soon the average consumer is not going to be able to put his money in gold or silver, and by the time that they're told to put their money in gold or silver, the asset is going to be out of their price range, just like Bitcoin and all of these other assets. Right, you see where the rich money is going with these rich people, or elites are doing, or even governments. They're buying up silver and gold. Right, and in this article they call it the debasement theory. All right, or debasement. Okay, it says historians trace the practice of currency dilution all the way back to ancient Rome. Yeah, this is when there was an income crisis. Rulers diluted their gold and silver coins with base metals to stretch their spending power without changing the face value of the coin. Obviously, that lowered the intrinsic value of the coins, which also lowered their purchasing power. This is the literal origin of the term debasement. Okay, so it comes from the Roman Empire. That was a practice that the Roman Empire employed with the denarius, changing it from superior metals to diluting it with inferior metals. Okay, so modern governments achieve the same results through money creation. Today, Washington's version of the same process appears in fiscal reports. Total U.S. federal debt is currently flirting with $38 trillion, precisely according to the Department of Treasury. Each new round of borrowing, every day's debt auction, injects more dollars into circulation, subtly diluting the purchasing power of every other dollar in existence. That's what modern debasement looks like. The same result, but much harder for the public to detect compared to classic debasements of silver and gold coins. Regardless, citizens and savers are on the losing end of the process, the new norm. Over the past decade, major central banks have collectively expanded their balance sheets by more than 25 trillion according to the IMF. That expansion has become a standing feature of fiscal policy, what some economics now call structural debasement. This structural, it says this, that's structural because inevitable debasement is built into the system. It gets worse every year, and central banks and wise investors are recognizing that debt, loans to governments, and currencies alike cannot be expected to increase in value after inflation. It's the same dynamic economics describe when they warn that normal gains can mask real losses once we factor in inflation, something retirees living on fixed income experience firsthand all too often. Governments have grown accustomed to spending more than they collect, a permanent structural imbalance, according to the Congressional Budget Office. The U.S. has run deficits annually since 2001, physical watchdogs note that despite years of debate, neither party has advanced a credible long-term plan to balance the federal budget. Now, Donald Trump spoke about this at his State of the Union address, but he's he's BS. Everything he says can't be trusted. He's not credible. Okay, because he mentioned balancing the budget during this when he got back into office the second time, and you don't hear about it anymore. Then you had the big beautiful bill. You had the Doge spectacle, the Doge show, where they was cutting, slashing all those programs, and now then you had the big beautiful bill, okay, which he added more to that $38 trillion deficit over years. All right, this is the recent government shutdown illustrates the stalemate, as Reuters explains. One side wants more domestic spending, the other more defense spending, but both agree on spending more rather than spending less. Yeah. This is the trend is clear. Now let us focus on what we can do about it. Okay. All right. Well, if you want to continue to read, I'm not going to read this because this is not important. The important is that you gauge the important information about what's going on in this wealth transfer and how they're, the term. I mean, what they're doing to use it, the key terms. I'm gonna get this precept real quick. All right, because the party is over. Okay, the party is over. Reality is about to set in, and a lot of people about to become poor. All right, people that never thought that they'd be in a destitute situation are going to become destitute. This is Ecclesiastes 12:1. It says, "Remember now thy Creator in the days of thy youth, while the evil days come not, nor the years draw nigh, when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them." Okay. It says, while the sun and the moon, it says, while the sun or the light or the moon or the stars be not darkened, nor the clouds return after the rain. Okay. Which this is now the time to remember your Creator in the days of thy youth. Okay. Because the Most High is in the process of taking the mirth, all right, taking the joy out of this place, all right, the so-called joy, the synthetic joys of this place. All right, the Most High is going to the entertainment, all of that. The Most High is getting ready to take this place out. He's about to cut the lights out on this place. Okay, it says, in the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble. So the modern day keepers of the house are the ones sounding these alarms. The modern day economic forecasters. They're seeing that the policies, all right, that are being pushed by the financial heads of this country, all right, the direction that the Senate and the Congress and the executive and the judicial branch of governments is not working. They're all divided. They're all against each other. All right, and they're seeing that these top trends and statistics are pointing in the wrong direction. All right, and they're trembling. All right, your modern day economic forecasters, those are the people that deal with your household management. And you can see that Ray Dalio, all right, sounding the alarm. Ray Dalio, who is Ray Dalio? He's I think he's JP Morgan CEO. He's a hedge fund manager. Ray Dalio, okay. That's not Ray Dalio. He's a hedge fund manager. Okay. Yeah, Ray Dalio is a hedge fund manager, okay? Ray Thomas Dalio. American billionaire and hedge fund manager. So he's putting his money in gold. All right, they're putting their money in gold. They're putting their money in assets. All right. Now you have some hedge fund managers. You might be able to find it on Instagram. But he said, "Look, take your money out of everything. Everything's gonna crash. Real estate, cryptocurrency. You know, bonds, private and federal bonds, or bonds that United States sells bonds. Okay, different private companies, they even sell bonds. You know, they're talking about bond crashes. And what is a bond? What is a bond? because there's a threat of a bond. Let's see, what is a bond? There's threats of bond crashes. Bond is a surety, right? Financial income. What is a bond? Where's let's see if I can find capital gain. Investor period bonds. Bonds, how they work and how to invest. All right, so it says, what is a bond? A bond, which is offered by most brokerage platforms, is a fixed income investment product, which individuals lend money to a government or company at a specific interest rate for a predetermined period. The entity repays individuals with interest in addition to the original face value of the bond. Bonds are used by companies, municipalities, states, and sovereign governments. So even cities sell bond. I could buy a bond for Baltimore City or a surrounding county, and that bond I would get the face value plus the interest over time. And this is how cities raise money. Okay, cities raise money, and if someone looking to invest in a bond in these times, it's not really favorable, because if you're holding a bond over a long period of time and the interest rate that you're expecting, all right, doesn't correlate to what's going on out on these streets, okay, with the investor sentiment. If I buy a bond in Baltimore City for 5 years, and I'm looking at Baltimore City, and Baltimore City is not managing their city properly, what is the reality of me receiving a dividend or a good return on my investment in purchasing a bond? Okay. And you have all of this economic turmoil out here. So people are taking their money out of these different instruments that have been sold, or halting them buying these different investments, in which when cities were prosperous, you might have got a return, an exponential return, but they're taking their money out of these different financial instruments and putting their money in gold or silver, right? And that's what Ray Dalio mentioned. All right, you're gonna put your money in gold or silver. And let's get the silver spot price. Because a few months ago, I mean, maybe last year, 2 years ago, you could have bought silver at a price of maybe $20 some an ounce. A couple years ago, maybe 3, 4 years ago, when they had a crash, because it was a silver crash, the price of silver was at $16. But now the price of silver is about 52.57 ounces. So you need $52 to buy 1 ounce of silver, where you used to need maybe $20, $25, $30, to buy silver. Now the price is up, similar to what gold is. So this is a sign that we almost the economy is get ready to tank. All right, and plus silver, you can use silver as a it's a silver is a usable commodity. Okay, silver is a usable commodity. All right, but I'm gonna end the video here, man. Just brought out one scripture, but I just wanted to go into this article. Uh, Forget the great wealth transfer. This is much. This is much worse. All right. Well, matter of fact, it is. Let's see. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, let's go to. Let's go to Ezekiel. What is it? Mactesh inhabitants. What is that in Ezekiel? Uh, Matter of fact, let me do this because I had to consider your ways. Because this is the inflation scripture right here. Haggai, Haggai 1:7. Let me see. Haggai 1:5. It says, now, now, therefore, thus saith the Lord of hosts, consider your ways. All right, our ways in living in Babylon, you Israelites. Ye have sown much and bring in little. Ye eat, but ye have not enough. Ye drink, it says, but ye are not filled with drink. Ye clothe you, but there is none warm. And he that earneth wages to put it into a bag with holes. And that's your inflation. All right. You're putting money in a bag of holes. You can't even put money in your savings account and expect a return. All right. You're actually losing money. All right. You put your money in a 6-month CD, you might not even get $1. Like say hypothetically, you put $25 in a 6-month CD at a percentage. All right. They're only going to give you change back per month. If that, 17 cent here, 18 cent there. All right. You might not even make $26. Well, you might get $26. Well, what's a dollar? You know, but that's the same thing with typically with the bonds too. You know, if inflation keeps on going up, the return that you're going to make on that bond is not going to be that much. You know, you might get your face value back, but then that money that you get back after all that time is worth less than when you first put it in there. All right, because the dollar is losing its purchasing power. You lose your purchasing power. Okay. But I'm gonna end the video here for time's sake. Call hello, Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, Bashim Kakwadash, double honors to the elders and apostles and great millstone. Salutations to you brothers pushing this word in truth and sincerity. Till the next video. Shalom.